بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. Let's make our intentions for the sake of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We're going to go through a series of questions and answers, inshaAllah. Try to follow along with the answers, just in your mind. You don't have to give an answer by uttering it with the lips, but to see how much you remember and how well versed you are in these matters that are pretty simple actually. Okay, so try to follow along, inshallah, and see if the answers that you have in your mind, without committing, unless you're sure, if they match what I mentioned, inshallah. So question number one: what is al-fard al-ayni from the Islamic knowledge? So what is the al-fard al-ayni, or the obligatory, the personal obligation when it comes to the Islamic knowledge? Okay, so there are many different types of knowledges within al-Islam. You can take it as a rule that knowledge in Islam is an obligation. You can give it that blanket rule. It's an obligation. Okay, either to learn something Islamic, either it's a personal obligation or it's a communal obligation. Okay, it's either this or that. Either something that you learn is something that if you don't learn it, you're sinful, so that's a personal obligation, fardu ayn. Or something is a communal obligation, which means that within the community there need to be a group of people, okay, it might be you, who know that matter, and hence everybody else who doesn't know the matter is safe from sin because you learned it. Okay, so there is fard ayn and there is fard kifaya, the personal obligation and the communal obligation. Now, the obligatory knowledge, when we say the obligatory knowledge, this is for every single person an amount of knowledge that is personal to them. So, for example, you need to know how to pray. You need to know how to perform wudu. You need to know how to perform the ghusl. If you're married, then you need to know, if you're a man and you're married, you need to know how much you need to provide for your wife. If you are a wife, then you need to know what your right is. And so on. These are personal obligations. If you have parents, if they're still alive, you need to know what is their right towards you. Okay, all of this is a personal obligation. If you want to go to perform al-Hajj, if you want to go this next coming year, then it's a personal obligation upon you to learn the details of al-Hajj. Okay, so it is an obligation upon every accountable Muslim to learn a certain amount of knowledge that they are not allowed to be ignorant about. Okay, usually because of the way that people were raised, this box, if you will, would be ticked automatically. The children in the Islamic countries would be into al-madaris or tab or whatever they call them, like schools. The way that people were raised, this box, if you will, would be ticked automatically. The children in the Islamic countries would be into al-madaris or tab or whatever they call them, like schools, like madrasa systems. Remember, madrasa systems in the past, they were like they are today. You go to school first, and then you go to the madrasa when the child is tired and hungry and irritable. Send them to madrasa. See how much they will learn. No, it didn't used to be like that. Still in some Islamic countries, the children go to learn the Islamic knowledge early in the morning. So they pray al-Fajr and then they're off. They go to learn with their tutors, whether they are learning the knowledge that comes under the obligatory knowledge, or they are going to learn the Quran, and so on and so forth. So the personal obligatory knowledge is an amount of knowledge that one is not allowed to be ignorant about. It includes al-aqidah. Al-aqidah means the core beliefs of a Muslim. Okay? And this is something that is an obligation upon the guardian. So if you have a child, you have a son or a daughter, then it is an obligation upon the father to teach the child. A son or a daughter, then it is an obligation upon the father to teach the child. When the child reaches the age of 7 years, so about 6.5, the child reaches this age and they are of understanding. Now it's an obligation upon the father to teach the child. The father may opt to take the child to a person, man or a woman, who will teach this child that knowledge. If the father does that, then the obligation is lifted from them. It's completed, it's fulfilled because somebody is doing it for them. But merely admitting a child into a madrasa where they teach the Quran, merely admitting a child into a madrasa where they teach the Quran, the recitation of the Quran with tajweed be it also, this is not enough. This is not enough because a person by reciting the Quran, merely by reciting the Quran, cannot become knowledgeable about the rules of the religion. You can have a person who has memorized the Quran, but they are ignorant about the rules of the religion. We know of Christians who have sought and have actually completed the memorization of the Quran. So by definition, they are huffaz of the Quran. For what purpose? For the Arabic grammar. So that they can speak properly in Arabic. They memorize the Quran. So does that mean that they're guided? Kuffar, right? They're kuffar. إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ نَجَسٌ. But they memorize the Quran. What does memorizing the Quran benefit them religiously? It doesn't. So learning to read the Quran by itself, that doesn't tick the box of learning the obligatory knowledge. If a person, sometimes it's seen in our communities, in the Indo-Pak community, if someone memorizes the Quran, they get the title, okay, Hafiz Saab, for example, Qari Saab, but that doesn't automatically mean now that they are knowledgeable. Some of these people, they don't know how to, without giving examples right now, they don't know how to do certain things. They don't have the religious knowledge. This is not a license just because someone memorized the Quran. This is not a license for people to then go and ask them Islamic questions, for them to give fatwas. This is not enough. So a person needs to make sure that they teach their child. If they do not have the capability, why might a parent not have a father? Why might a father, let's say, not be capable in teaching their child? If the father is lacking himself because he is not knowledgeable about the personal obligatory knowledge, then he himself is an enormous sinner. He himself is a fasiq. He himself is somebody whose testimony with the Islamic judge is not accepted. You know that, right? Like if somebody in an Islamic country, if somebody stole, or if somebody murdered, or if somebody did something, and this man was a witness, and then they came to the judge, and the judge got to know that this person hasn't learned the personal obligatory knowledge, he wouldn't take his saying. Why? Because he's an enormous sinner. Islamically, he's not trustworthy. Even if you gave this person £2,000 to save for a year and they gave it back to you, and you trust them, Islamically, they're a criminal. Why? Because the crime is that they did not learn the personal obligatory knowledge. This Muslim father, he is a fasiq. The scholars say he is a mujrim because he didn't learn the personal obligatory knowledge. Likewise, the mother who did not learn the personal obligatory knowledge. So this person, if they do not have the personal obligatory knowledge themselves, then they won't be able to teach it to their children. So they need to firstly learn it for themselves. If this person takes their child to somebody who will teach them, then great, then the child will be learning. Of course, if the child doesn't learn until pubescence, until before pubescence, the child isn't sinful. Why? Because the pen is lifted, right? But the parent would be sinful. The parent who didn't teach the child because the parent, him or herself, was a criminal religiously. The crime that they committed was they didn't learn the personal obligatory knowledge. They are a mujrim, as the scholars mention. They delayed teaching the child until, let's say, the child was close to pubescence. The child is not to blame. Yeah, the child doesn't fast, the child doesn't pray, the child is not accountable. The child isn't sinful, but the parent is sinful. The parent doesn't wake the child up, for example, for al-fajr. The parent doesn't wake the child up for fajr. The parent does not order the child to pray. Okay, the child that we mentioned, the child that is at least 6.5 years of age, 7 to 8 years, and they are of understanding. It's an obligation upon the parent, upon the guardian, firstly upon the father, to teach the child. Otherwise, they get someone else to teach the child. So the personal obligatory knowledge is in creed. It's very important to teach the child the creed first. And a person shouldn't actually delay to when it becomes an obligation upon them. Isn't it that at the age of 2 and 3, even 1.5, children start to pick up words, right? They start to say mom, dad, mama, dada, other things like that. And people start to get them to learn the numbers, okay? They start to say their siblings' names, sometimes distorted and so on. So a person can get them to learn the attributes of Allah, some of the names of Allah, the names of the prayer, the names of some of the companions, for example, some of the religious knowledge. The intelligent parent also gets their child to learn certain parts of the Quran. How? The mother recites the Quran. The child is mostly in the care of the mother. The mother recites the Quran, but if she's not reciting it correctly, if she hasn't learned, some people are very shy. Some men and women, they're very shy. They'll say, well, we've been reciting like this for good odd 20-25 years. But they can't bring themselves to, and this is shameful for them. And when we say the word shameful, it's not used lightly religiously. Shameful usually is used about something that's sinful. So it's shameful for a person to be shy when it comes to asking about something that they need religiously. Islamically, they're obligated to do something. If they are shy about that, then that's shameful for them not to ask. Because that means they would rather be drowning in sin than free themselves from that sin. Some people are afraid. They might not attend a gathering where, for example, people are practicing Al-Fatiha. Okay? All of us, we were not born knowledgeable. Okay? Up to the age of even, let's say, 2.5, we didn't even have a belief. You don't believe anything until you get to like 3 or 4. You don't have a belief about the world and where it came from and so on. You don't deduce intellectually, but you learn like that. A person might not learn until they are 50, but if they are 50 and they haven't learned, then they start to learn. So a person needs to teach the child about the creed, about a person themselves if they are not learned in these matters, and that's for many reasons. People might have been neglected when they were younger. But now that they are pubescent and sane, they've heard the call to al-Islam, they need to acquire the personal obligatory knowledge. Even housewives who rear their children, who nurture their children at home, who don't work, even they have to learn a certain amount of knowledge, okay, to do with themselves. It comes before many other things. Likewise, they learn about the prayer, the bare minimum. If a new Muslim embraces al-Islam, let's say right now, okay, it's going to be al-Maghrib soon, right? Maybe 20 minutes. If a person embraced al-Islam right now, they said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. We would say to them, you need to pray al-Asr. Okay, how should I pray al-Asr? Okay, I'll teach you, come. I'll help you make wudu. If it was a male, okay, I'd take him for example. So okay, do as I do, wash your face. This is an obligation, this is how we purify. Wash your face and so on. Maybe do the bare minimum, just once wash the face and so on. And do the rest of the wudu and say, okay, come, I'm going to pray. What I want you to do is, I want you to follow what I do. Say Allahu Akbar. Can you say Allahu Akbar? Have you ever heard Allahu Akbar? Yes, I'm sure you have. Okay. Say Allahu Akbar. Begin the prayer with me and follow me as I do. Okay. And I will say Assalamu Alaikum. Have you heard Assalamu Alaikum before? Yes, I'm sure you have. Okay. So at the end of the prayer, say Assalamu Alaikum. Say Assalamu Alaikum and follow me and the prayer will be done. Even if you don't recite anything in the prayer. Even if you don't recite at first, let's say anything in the prayer. If I have some time, I'll say to them, when it comes to the tahiyyat, okay, if you're going to recite the tahiyyat, which you won't be able to right now, there's 20 minutes, okay, at the very least say, when you're sitting in that tahiyyat position, which is at the end of the prayer, say, Azifatil Azifa. An ayah of the Quran. Azifatil Azifa. You got it? Say Azifatil Azifa. Say it again. Azifatil Azifa. Right, let's pray. Okay? This brother sitting here, he's already prayed. When you get to that position, he'll remind you. He'll say Azifatil Azifa. You just say that. It's not difficult, especially if it's an English person who doesn't know the Arabic language. Azifatil Azifa. It's easy. They pray the Asr. It would be a major sin upon a person who just embraced Islam not to pray the obligatory prayer. It's very, very easy. Some people say, oh, he probably needs a week. They probably need a month or a year. No, don't measure what this person has to do based upon your own laziness or your own ignorance. Ask. The prayer is very, very important. This now, for some people who are lazy, it should ring alarm bells. That even the non-Muslim, embraced Islam a bit ago, 20 minutes left till Maghrib, he has to pray. Yeah, he has to pray. Of course he has to pray. Oh, but what about Al-Fatiha? Well, ask. He doesn't have to recite Al-Fatiha. Okay, what if we've all prayed and he has to pray by himself? Well, we tell him, stand, say Allahu Akbar. He say Azifatil Azifa. Okay, go. Bow now, stay there for a few seconds. Okay, go back up, like that. This is how you teach the person, he has to pray. For that person, this is the personal obligatory knowledge at that time. It's very easy. Another thing I want to touch upon actually, we'll probably touch upon this another time a bit more, but nowadays what's become rife is on social media you'll see, and sometimes in the local La ilaha illallah. In the local institutions, some of them, you'll see them, they will happily and proudly advertise what they claim someone embracing Islam to be. So they'll ask them, like they say, 21 questions, are you being forced? Have you thought about it? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Then they will say to them, say a statement which resembles the Shahada, but they don't say the name of the Prophet ﷺ correctly. That person doesn't embrace Islam. That person doesn't embrace Islam. And this is rife on social media, where they will have pictures of people or videos of people delaying others embracing Islam. These people never learned. They think they're doing something good. They think they're doing something grand. Oh, I'm bringing this person to Islam. In actual fact, they are sliding down into the valley with them. They are falling into the hole with them. Instead of bringing them to Islam, they end up delaying them and becoming a kafir themselves. Allah revealed about this type of situation in the Quran, that these people they're at the biggest loss. They think they're doing good, but in actual fact, they are doing something that is very, very bad. So anyway, I gave that example to touch upon an aspect of the personal obligatory knowledge. Upon that person that embraced Islam just now, it is an obligation to pray. And it's not hard. Some people, some Muslims, they make it seem hard. And some of them judge from themselves. Some of them might say, he's just embraced Islam. Oh, we're afraid. We don't want him to leave Islam, so let's not tell him to pray. He knows what Islam is about. He is perhaps braver than you who are saying that. This person knows that their life will change. This person knows that by embracing Islam, there are so many people who will perhaps turn against them or now dislike them from their own family. You don't think they're ready to be told, oh, now you need to wash your face once and purify? La ilaha illallah. Somebody told me once, subhanallah, that they got someone to embrace Islam. And when this person, he had been asking, I guess, about Islam, and he was being told about the correct belief and so on. So he, in his heart, he had the correct understanding. So when he said the Shahada, he said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. He later he said that I felt a weight, like the weight of the world that was on my shoulders. I felt it being lifted. When you ask some of our teachers about that, they'll tell you that is the hold that sins and kufr has upon a person. A person feels emancipated, like they've broken the shackles of injustice, which is the gravest injustice against Allah, to worship other than Allah or to blaspheme against Allah. So these people who embrace Islam, they are very, very brave. So a person shouldn't let their own insecurities, reflect on this situation and say, oh, maybe they're not ready. No. Insecurities, reflect on this situation and say, oh, maybe they're not ready. No. It's very, very easy. There is a personal, obligatory knowledge that is upon every person. And it's different for different people. In what sense? For example, if I was someone who didn't have any money, I was destitute, I have no money, I'm homeless, for example, do I have to pay zakah? No. So do I have to learn about zakah? No, I don't. I don't have, for example, enough money, let's say, to perform al-hajj. Am I obligated right now to learn about al-hajj? No. I don't have, let's say, a business. Am I obligated to learn about the transactions that occur between me and my co-partners, which are non-existent? No. Okay? So like this, I don't have animals that I own. I don't have cows that I milk and then sell the milk of, or I don't have chickens, hens that lay eggs. I don't have to learn about any of that. But somebody who does. Because that knowledge is a personal obligation upon them. So it includes, the personal obligatory knowledge includes prayer, fasting, zakah, for whom it's obligatory upon, al-hajj, for whoever's able, as I described. And the sins of the heart, a person needs to learn about them. The sins of the hand, the sins of the eye, and other than that. Allah revealed in the Quran, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Say, O Muhammad, alayka salatu wasalam. Say to the people, say what? Do you think, O people, that those that do not know, those that are juhal, those that are ignorant, do you think, O people, those that are jahils, that they are equal to those that know? How emphatic is that? Right? How much of an emphasis is that? That is left as a question. It's obvious. It's obvious. Do you think that they're equal? Someone who doesn't know, even if they have a big beard, even if they have 20 million followers on a certain platform, even if they do what seems apparently like, let's say, charity work, or they dig wells, fresh water, you see it soaring out of the ground. They built something, they built a hospital, or they built something for orphans, and so on and so forth. But they do that based upon saying, I have a good intention, but they didn't learn the personal obligatory knowledge. They're a criminal. Religiously, they're a mujrim, fasiq. We hope they have the correct belief in Allah. If not, then they're a kafir, doing all of that for what? So, قُلْ يَا مُحَمَّدْ عَلَيْكَ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي, are they equal? الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ, those that know, وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, those that don't know. It's like saying, no way are they equal. No way are they equal. Like addressing a person and saying, are you feeling alright? You think they're equal? Of course they're not equal. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. Learning the personal obligatory knowledge. This is upon every single Muslim. Narrated by Al-Bayhaqi. And in another narration, عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ وَمُسْلِمَةٍ, and every female Muslimah also. So there will be chapters right now. Let's say we've all learned the personal obligatory knowledge. Okay? There will be things right now, because we're humans and we forget. There will be things that you and I are forgetting. We've forgotten the details about. It's not in our mind right now. If we were asked about it, we wouldn't know about it. But it's a personal obligation upon us. What do we need to do? We're obligated to review it. How would I review it? I could either ask somebody if they remember the detail, or I resort back to the notes. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't make any notes. For example, I didn't make any notes. Like most of you now. I'm not making notes, right? It's either because you've learned the personal obligatory knowledge. Yeah, look, I'm saying it as it is, right? Either because you've learned the religious knowledge and you're waiting for me. You've got this itch for me to ask you about one of the parts of the personal obligatory knowledge right now. In any of the chapters. Sorry. In any of the chapters, you're waiting. You're just wanting for me to ask you because you know the answer. Or you don't. It might be in your notes that are at home. Okay. Or not. I'm not going to ask you right now, don't worry. But that's something to think about, isn't it? It's an obligation upon a person to review their religious knowledge that they are forgetting. To give you an example, I'll give you an example. If I was to ask you right now, how many integrals are there in the prayer? What are those things, and I'm very specific then, what are those things that you need to do in the prayer? If you don't do them, the prayer is not valid. If I was to ask you that and said, name them for me. And I was very specific, and I said, no, not that one, not that one, not that. How many people would be able to do that? If a person doesn't know that, then they need to review. If I said to a person, can you name me all of the invalidators of the prayer? Don't you pray every day? Yeah, I do. Isn't it an obligation upon you to pray? Yes, it is. So how are you doing something? How are you going into something without having knowledge about it? How do you know it's even valid? Isn't it about time that you reviewed? Yes. Do you have an annual calendar that you're upon where you review the different chapters of knowledge or not? That's a very, very important matter. We'll pray soon, inshallah. Question number 2. So the question number 1 was about what is the personal obligatory knowledge? Okay? What is the personal obligatory knowledge? Number 2, ما الحكمة من خلق الجن والإنس? What is the wisdom behind the creation, or Allah creating the humans and the jinn? What's the wisdom? We're all Muslims, right? Yes. What's the wisdom behind Allah creating the creation? creating the humans and the jinn. Sorry? What does that mean? To order, to order them. That's key. A lot of people, they will say, yeah, you got it right, to order them. So a lot of people they'll mention this ayah, but they will not give the correct interpretation of it. Some people will say that Allah created the humans and the jinn so that they would worship Allah. But in actual fact, there's a bit that they're missing. They should say, Allah created the jinn and the humans to order them to worship Him. And Allah did not will, despite the order was for all of them, Allah did not will that they would all obey. So what is the purpose of life? It is to worship Allah. From our perspective, it is to worship Allah Ta'ala. I'll be frank. The purpose of life is not to be happy. That's not the purpose of life. Purpose of life is not to experience new things, adrenaline rush here, excitement here, euphoria there. That's not the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to obey Allah. Whether that is a person, whether it's in this country or that country, in this situation or that situation, in poverty and in health, in sickness or wealth, or every situation sounds like another situation. In every situation, a person has to obey Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. This is the wisdom behind the creation of the accountable beings. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala revealed in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah Ta'ala revealed, I created the jinn and the humans to order them to worship me. But again, as I said, Allah, created them so that they would be ordered through the prophets to worship Allah. But Allah did not will all of them to worship Allah. Rather, most out of, let's say Allah created this many people, most of them will be in hell. Most of them will be kuffar. This is the reality of the matter. حَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَوْلِ, which means that Allah has eternally willed that most of them will be in hell. Most of them will be kuffar. Allah revealed لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمْ, that Allah will fill hellfire with kuffar. Most of the human race, most of them will be in hell because they will be kuffar. The Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam said, حَقُّ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْعِبَادِ, the greatest right of Allah on the slaves, on the humans and the jinn, the accountable ones. What is that? أَنْ يَعْبُدُوهُ, to worship Him. وَلَا يُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا, and that the humans and the jinn do not worship other than Allah. Are there people or entities that are worshipped other than Allah? Are there? There are, right? But they worship falsely. Don't some people worship Prophet Isa alayhi salam? Don't some people worship cows? Don't some people worship idols? Don't some people worship things that are in the sky, and so on and so on? Things are worshipped, but they are worshipped unrightfully and unjustly. This is shirk. Shirk means to worship something that is not Allah. Like those people that worship what they believe is in the sky, they call it Allah. They might call it Allah Azza wa Jal. But Allah is not in the sky. Therefore, anyone who worships something that they believe to be in the sky is not a Muslim. Number 3. كيف تصح العبادة? How is worship valid? What makes worship valid? Worship, what makes it valid is for one to believe that Allah exists and that Allah does not resemble the creation. Then fasting is valid. Then prayer is valid. Wudu is valid. Then worship is Hajj, Zakah, and all these matters are valid. Allah revealed, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. This is the clearest ayah in the Quran that proves that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is not like the creation in any way whatsoever. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, as was narrated by As-Suyuti, La fikrata fil Rabb. The mind, it cannot imagine Allah. Allah is unimaginable. After the prayer, inshaAllah, we'll move on to the next question, which is لماذا أرسل الله الرسل? Why did Allah send the prophets? We'll stop here for now. Let's say La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Did you all do your tahseen, which is to recite Al-Falaq 3 times, Al-Ikhlas 3 times, and Al-Nas 3 times? Did you all do that? This is something the Prophet encouraged, alayhi salatu wassalam, at Al-Maghrib and Al-Fajr, to do what's called At-Tahseen, to fortify yourself. Just as you would fortify yourself against an enemy, right? Protect yourself against an enemy. Like that, you fortify yourself against the devils. It's like placing a fortress between yourself and the devils. So, and the Prophet recommended it, so don't leave it out. This is something that our Shaykh Abdullah, rahimahullah, he would encourage. Why? Because the Prophet encouraged it, alayhi salatu wassalam. Then later on, and it's true, later on, if a person complains and they didn't do their tahseen al-maghrib, if they complain that, I think I was struck by al-ayn, or someone hit me with a nazar, or the evil eye, or I was afflicted by magic, or I was injured, or and so on and so on and so on, or I don't feel too good, or I've got waswas, the devil's whispering to me a lot and I can't control it. Well, did you do your tahseen, ya habibi? Did you do your tahseen? No. What do you want me to tell you now? You want me to recite on you? Or do you want me to recite and blow on some water? Or you didn't do your tahseen. What do you want? Who is to blame? For if I don't do tahseen, I can't blame you. I've got to point the finger at myself. Okay? So I haven't done my tahseen, so I'm going to do my tahseen right now. I mean, if you didn't do it, or if you did do it, then inshallah khair, okay? But Shaykh Abdullah, as soon as he used to hear that Al-Maghrib is in, he used to recite, Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis samaa wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis samaa wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. Of course, the Prophet taught us this, عليه الصلاة والسلام. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. So it doesn't take long, it takes about 5 minutes, but you feel lighter as well if you do your tahseen at al-Maghrib and al-Fajr. So you wake up for al-Fajr and you do your tahseen, so what we just did there, okay? It's from the Quran and from the sayings of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Then you weaken the devil that is accompanying you. The effect that that devil is able to have upon you in terms of the strength of the whisper that devil can instill within your heart, the strength of that, it gets less, okay? It weakens that whisper, weakens the effect that devil can have upon you. Sometimes you'll find yourselves heavy and agitated, okay? Not just because of something dodgy you ate, okay? But it's more spiritual than that, if you will. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said that whoever recites al-falaq and al-nas at al-maghrib and al-fajr, he said about it that it will be enough for this person from everything. Takfihi kulla shay. But most people don't do that. Al-falaq and al-nas, Shaykh Abdullah, he would prescribe it for people to recite in the prayer if they suffer from stress and anxiety in the prayer and then after the prayer also. Al-Falaq and Al-Nas. So many people, he told them to do this. But a person needs to make sure that they recite it properly also. There will be people that say, well, I recited it X amount of times and I didn't feel any different. Okay, let me hear how you recited it. And they unfortunately, they stumble in many different places. And they don't recite the letters properly. They don't recite the ayahs properly. So to unlock the secrets, the blessings that the ayahs hold, a person needs to recite it properly.
Sorry, is it better to recite it, once you finish the prayer and you stay seated? Is that more beneficial?
What's more beneficial is to recite it as soon as al-Maghrib enters, even if it's before the prayer. So as soon as al-Fajr enters or as soon as al-Maghrib enters, you mean the tahsin, right?
No,
yeah.
No.
So as soon as the prayer time enters, even if you haven't prayed yet. So whenever Shaykh Abdullah used to be told, he would ask, is al-Maghrib in? He would be told yes, so he would start Bismillah alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis samaa wa huwa as-sami'ul 'alim. And then he would finish the tahsin. And after the prayer, already we should all be reciting Ayatul Kursi, because there is a hadith about that, about reciting it after the obligatory prayer. Okay, Barakallahu fikum. Don't neglect that. Don't neglect it. And like this, guess what? To recite it at Fajr, you've got to wake up for Fajr. That's no surprise, is it? Right? So how was I saying today? If a person wakes up after having 7 or 8 hours of sleep and they're still groggy and irritable, and dare I say it, some people are in a vile mood. Why? They slept through al-Fajr. They didn't do the tahsin. As the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, this person wakes up khabith an-nafs. Ya Latif. Khabith an-nafs. Khabith an-nafs. Like to say, sinister of self. They wake up with a bit of darkness in them. They want to wake up, as the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, tayyib an-nafs. They want to wake up sweet of nafs, or pleasant of nafs, if you will, self. لماذا أرسل الله الرسل? Why did Allah send the prophets? Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala sent the prophets to teach the people what is good for them in the world and in the hereafter. Is everything edible? It's not, is it? Can we eat stones? Physically, let's leave religiously to the side. Can we eat stones? Will we find somebody in the next 5 minutes chewing on the curtain over there, licking the wall, eating part of that clock? Okay, the handle's going to be gone. No, you can't eat everything, right? So that's known. Then there are things that are considered in the norm to be edible, but Islamically they might not be edible. So the things that people do eat, okay, they are narrowed down by religious law through what the prophets conveyed to us by divine revelation. So they taught us what was best for us, both in our worldly life and in our hereafter. Like, for example, for men to wear silk, real silk, this is feminine. This is not something good for a man. Or for a man to wear gold. Or for a man to wear a silver chain. This is womanly. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that and other things, many other things. So they taught us what is good for us in this life, our worldly matters and the matters of our hereafter. And they called, first and foremost, to worshipping Allah alone, tabaraka wa ta'ala. The one who worships other than Allah, Allah alone, tabaraka wa ta'ala. The one who worships other than Allah, while they were saying, pubescent. And they heard the call to Islam, the one who worships other than Allah until the day that they expire, this person will not be excused. This person will be in hell forever without an end. Whether they call themselves a Jew, a Christian, whether they refer to themselves as a Muslim or otherwise, if they worshipped other than Allah, or they did not agree with the rules of the religion, they actively belied, or they did not agree with the rules of the religion, they actively belied the rules revealed to Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, they would not be a Muslim. Like the Qadianiyah, who say that there was a prophet after our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, a new prophet, Ghulam Ahmad, wal-'iyadhu billah, min su'il khatimah. This person, he claimed to be a prophet after our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So even if that group of people, if they call themselves Muslims, this is not enough. If they die on a creed, on a belief other than the creed of the Muslims, then they will be in hell forever without an end. Like that, the people that say, we worship Allah, and by Allah, they refer to a man, which happened actually in Egypt. There was a person known as Al-Hakim bi-Amrillah, the one who rules by the divine law. They gave him this title. When a lot of people in Egypt, when they said La ilaha illallah, and these were the Rawafid, a lot of the Shia, when they said the Fatimids in Egypt a long time ago, when they said La ilaha illallah, they meant that man. They said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. When they said La ilaha illallah, they meant there is no God but Allah, i.e. in brackets, Hakim bi Amrillah, this guy. And Muhammad al-Rasulullah, they said Muhammad here is Hakim sidekick, Muhammad al-Dirzi, wal-'iyadhu billah. So here you have people saying, they're telling you, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, but they, if they die. So here you have people saying, they're telling you, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, but they, if they die on that day, they would be in hell forever without an end. Imagine that. And there are people like that. The Prophet told us, didn't he? We're not making this up. Our Prophet told us, Unasun min jildatina, people who look like us. Yatakallamuna bi alsinatina, they speak like us. They say Subhanallah, MashaAllah, Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah. They use hadith. Ta'rifu minhum ma tunkir. You look at some of the things they say, and you think, oh yeah, they say like us. Eid Mubarak, pay your fitrana, make sure you fast Ramadan. They speak like us. Wa tunkir. But then they say things like, Allah is in the sky. They say things like, Allah has two right hands, as the Wahhabiyya say. They say things like, Allah has a foot that He will put into hell, and then hell will say, no more, no more. So they worship this thing with a face that has supposedly many eyes, two right hands, and a leg and a foot. And it comes up and down from the arsh to the lowest sky like a yo-yo all night long. They say, La ilaha illallah, the glorified, the glorious, the transcendent, who's not like the creation. They say, Yani. But then they describe him to be like an ugly, deformed, retarded human being. This is not Islam. These people are kuffar. Even if they say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, or if they give the adhan in the Masjid al-Haram, or if one of them was to lead what is apparently the prayer in the Masjid al-Nabawi, they are kuffar. If one of them was to stand on the Kaaba and say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. When he says Allah, he imagines this thing sitting on a throne in the sky. When he says Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, with this kufr belief, the angels damn him. The angels make dua against this person. They say La ilaha illallah, just that by itself. With the wrong understanding, this does not make that person a Muslim. So why did Allah send the prophets? so that they would teach people what was good for them. Allah revealed, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ النَّبِيِّينَ مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ. Allah sent the prophets as givers of glad tidings of paradise, of reward, luxury and perpetual pleasure, and as warners to the people, warning against the threat of Allah, which is hellfire. The Prophet ﷺ said, أَفْضَلُ مَا قُلْتُ أَنَا وَالنَّبِيُّونَ مِنْ قَبْلِي لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. The best, he said, of what I have said and what my brothers, the prophets before me, have said is that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one that is not like the creation, the one that is without place, the one upon whom time does not lapse, not supposedly La ilaha illallah, no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, this thing in the sky that the Jews worship, and some who have the Jewish belief. Lastly, what is the meaning of at-tawheed? What is at-tawheed? What does that mean? You've heard of at-tawheed, yes? No? What does it mean? Have you heard of at-tawheed, yes or no? Just yes or no, yes or no, yes? 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 At-tawheed? Okay. Okay, what does it mean? It literally means oneness. Min wahid. You know wahid? Wahid. Wahid. Wahid in Arabic means one. Allahu Akbar. Wahid. Okay. At-tawheed means oneness, or what? Uniqueness. Okay, oneness meaning what? That la sharika lah. There's no one like Allah. So Allah is unique, right? So, ما معنى التوحيد? التوحيد means for each and every one of us to understand, to differentiate between the creation and the creator. This ability of ours to differentiate, and hence what results from that is that we know what is creation, things that change, things that are large in size or small in size, things that have a limit. To know that this is creation and that it's not Allah, large in size or small in size, things that have a limit. To know that this is creation and that it's not Allah, and that Allah is not like that, is called having the belief in at-tawheed, in the tawheed of Allah, in the oneness of Allah, in the uniqueness of Allah. It's not like what the Wahhabiyya say. They introduced something new, well, based upon what Ibn Taymiyyah said. Ibn Taymiyyah, he classified at-tawheed, which is one, la ilaha illallah, he classified it into three categories. And then Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab, he revived this ill creed to make takfir on the Muslims, to call Muslims kuffar. What did they say? They said, do you not know that tawheed is three? They said, tawheed al-uluhiyyah, وتوحيد الربوبية وتوحيد الأسماء والصفات. They did this to call Muslims kuffar. How? They said there's something known as Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, to say that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He is the only God. Or rather to say, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, to say that only Allah deserves to be worshipped. It's very important for us to understand, actually. Inshallah, some posts will go out about this, where they only judge a person as a Muslim if he believes in their version of these three tawheeds. They'll say, so firstly, they'll say, you have to believe in something called Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, the Godhood of Allah. When they say that, what they mean is that you should only worship Allah. Up to here, okay. But then it's the way that they interpret the meaning of worship, okay, that would make them accuse us of kufr. For example, if somebody sits here and says, Ya Rasulallah, help me, O Messenger of Allah. The scholars unanimously agreed that if a person knows that Allah is God and the Prophet is not God, and the Prophet does not create benefit and harm like Allah creates, then there's no harm in saying Ya Rasulullah. The Wahhabiyah, they said that if somebody says Ya Rasulullah, this is kufr. Or Ya Badawi, or Ya Jailani, or Ya Rifa'i, or so when they say this is kufr. We say it's better than to say Ya Rifa'i or to say Ya Jilani, to say Ya Allah. It's better, of course it's better, you're calling Allah. The Prophet said, إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. If you ask, then ask Allah. That's fine. It's also good if you're sick, if you're not well, if you've got a headache, it's also good for you to raise your hands and say, Ya Rab, Allahumma shfini, cure me. But it's not problematic either if you take a paracetamol. And if that helps, okay? Or if you use some other means, okay? You get honey, put in some water, or whatever means. There's no harm in that, right? What if someone said, if you have honey and water when you have a headache, instead of asking Allah, you're a kafir. That's problematic now, isn't it? Same thing. Same thing. If somebody says, if you say Ya Rifa'i, and who amongst us believes that Rifa'i is Allah? Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? If there was somebody like that, of course, we would be the first to put them to the side and say, look, this is kufr. Anyway, so they say you have to believe in Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. You have to worship Allah alone. And they interpret worship in such a way that if you call upon somebody, okay, who's far away, then this is considered, according to them, kufr. So they would say you did not believe in the uniqueness of Allah when it comes to Godhood. That's one. Number two, they say Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. They say you have to believe that Allah is the creator of everything. Okay? Yeah? I believe Allah is the creator of everything. But then they will say to you, well, when you call out onto the Prophet ﷺ, you know what you're actually doing. They'll say, you actually believe that the Prophet creates, so you're a kafir. So if you say, Ya Muhammad ﷺ, which some of the companions did actually after the Prophet passed away. If you say that, then they will say to you, you're a kafir. Okay, why are we so agitated by what they say? And because they are on social media and they're taking our brothers, sisters, our children, they're influencing our youngsters. And even before that, the Prophet told us, if you know of a haram matter, of a sinful matter, of something wrong, you have to stamp it out, you have to call it out. Don't be like Bani Israel that said, none of my business. And then they were damned by Allah. Lu'inu, Allah revealed in the Quran. Why? كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهُونَ عَن مُنْكَرٍ فَعَلُوا. Because they wouldn't call out evil when they saw it. Anyway, so that's their Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. The last one, they say Tawheed al-Asma' was-Sifat. This is unique, believing in the uniqueness, the oneness of Allah when it pertains to the names and the attributes of Allah. Here they say they have a rule which they made up. Maybe the devil whispered it to them, perhaps not. They said, if you see an ayah in the Quran in which Allah is mentioned, or if you see a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which Allah is mentioned, then you have to take it literally. That's it, no exceptions. That you have to take it literally. So you can't use metaphors. We use a lot of metaphors, okay? When it comes to what Allah revealed. You cannot speak your mother tongue even, be it English or otherwise. You cannot speak your mother tongue without figurative language. You cannot do it. Imagine taking everything literally. You might have seen some sketches where people, they only understand things literally. And it's kind of funny, like they don't understand what's going on, and yeah. But imagine actually speaking like that, it would be a disaster. So when Allah, for example, we'll finish with this, when Allah Ta'ala revealed Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arshi istawa. This, it has a literal meaning, And it has many other figurative meanings that a person could take from it. But they're insisting on saying it means, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, Allah sits. So now once, like say, cat's out of the bag, once they've said Allah sits, and they say literally, then they say, but we can't imagine it. Which is ridiculous. So it is upon us then to call this kufr as it is. Because a person has there insulted Allah and then said, but it's not like what we think. It doesn't work like that. So these are the three supposed types of tawheed. And by that, they call so many Muslims kuffar, so many Muslims. When the Najdi movement in the mid-1700s, they came from Najd, which is called Riyadh today. They attacked Mecca and Al-Medina, and they spilled blood. They killed the elders. They killed the breastfeeding children on their mothers' chests. They went into the masjids. They slaughtered the people who were in ruku' and in sujood and reciting the Quran. And the books of the Quran, the pages were in the streets. They pillaged and they robbed Sunni Muslims. They killed Sunni Muslims. This is the Wahhabi movement. Because they believe that the Ottoman Empire, firstly, they believe that the Ottoman Empire was an empire and the sultans were people who were grave worshippers. Because they go to the graves and they think that we're asking the people in the graves to create things for us. All of this is based upon this matter of their interpretation of at-tawheed, the three different types. It's very important for everyone to understand that. Then you understand what a lot of them did in Iraq when there were videos going around about Muslims, Sunni Muslims being lined up and shot and slaughtered. And why? Because they didn't agree with them in their version of these three tawheeds. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So it's not good to be ignorant about something like that. About why they call a Sunni Muslim, an Ash'ari or a Maturidi, why they call these Muslims kuffar. Because they don't agree with what Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab revived from Ibn Taymiyyah some 800 years ago. Anyway, MashaAllah, we'll stop here today. Barakallahu fikum. Let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.